The EU just made every chatbot in the world tell you it's a bot. 5 stories. One of them rewrites how the entire AI industry talks to you. Story 1 of 5. The world's first AI law is now in force, with real penalties for non-compliance. The European Union's AI Act is now in force. Enforcement began on the 2nd of August, 2026, under Article 50 of Regulation EU 2024-1689. 3 new requirements are now in force. Every chatbot in the European Union must now disclose that it is a bot, so users are informed they are interacting with AI. Every deepfake, whether AI-generated or altered images, video, or audio, must carry a clear machine-readable label. And AI-generated content must carry metadata-readable signals of its AI origin. The AI Office, working with national market surveillance authorities, is the enforcement body. AI systems that fail to comply face fines of up to €15 million, or 3% of worldwide annual turnover, whichever is higher. This is the first major AI law in the world to actually bite. And it sets up the next story. More than 180 organizations, a preview of the parallel code of practice we will cover at the end of the episode, have already lined up to comply. Story 2 of 5. Google's 30th employee is leaving after 27 years to start a public benefit corporation. Jeff Dean, Google's 30th employee, is leaving the company after 27 years. Per Reuters on the 5th of August, 2026, Dean will co-launch a public benefit corporation called Discovery Loop. His co-founders include Sanjay Ghemawat, Quoc, and Oriol Vinyals, all longtime Google colleagues and AI research leaders. The mission: automate machine learning in scientific experimental loops. What that means in practice: building AI that runs, monitors, and reruns scientific experiments autonomously, a self-driving lab concept that turns the discovery process into a continuous automated pipeline. The story was corroborated by TechCrunch, CNBC, and The Verge. This is the most consequential brain drain from Google since DeepMind's founding. To put it in context, Jeff Dean invented MapReduce, helped create TensorFlow, and shaped much of the core machine learning infrastructure that powers modern AI. When the people who built the foundation leave, the foundation is shifting. Story 3 of 5. Legal AI is now a $15.5 billion company after a 41% step-up in 5 months. Harvey AI is reportedly raising $500 million plus at a $15.5 billion valuation, per the information on the 7th of August, 2026, via SiliconANGLE. That is a 41% step up from the $11 billion valuation it received in March of 2026, per Reuters. The company's annualized revenue has grown from $190 million in January of 2026, per Artificial Lawyer, to over $350 million today, about 84% growth in 7 months. Harvey builds domain-specific AI for law firms, and counts more than 500 law firm customers, including Paul Weiss, Ian O'Shearman, and Clifford Chance. What this signals: vertical AI applications are now valued like frontier labs. A law firm-specific chatbot is worth more than most public companies. The business model shift is real. In 2024, AI was about general capability. In 2026, the money is in domain-specific deployment. Story 4 of 5. The US has a finished AI safety framework. The public just isn't allowed to see it. The White House met on the 4th of August, 2026, with OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and NVIDIA to review a finalized voluntary AI safety framework under President Trump's Executive Order 14409, dated the 2nd of June, 2026. The framework gives covered frontier models 30 days of pre-release access to the government, so labs can show their next-generation models to the government a full month before launch. The executive order's savings clause explicitly forbids any mandatory licensing regime. The framework is not being publicly released, per Fortune on the 4th of August. Chris McGuire of the Council on Foreign Relations called the secrecy baffling. Senate Democrats called the approach ad hoc and unpredictable. The contrast could not be sharper. The European Union is enforcing transparent rules in public. The United States is meeting behind closed doors. The 2 biggest AI regulatory regimes in the world have just chosen opposite philosophies. Story 5 of 5. More than 180 organizations signed a transparency pledge for AI-generated content. The European Commission's Code of Practice on Transparency of AI-generated content has been signed by more than 180 organizations. There are 235 section signings across the code's 2 sections, covering about 190 distinct organizations by the end of July 2026, per the European Commission. US frontier labs are in Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, and Meta. European AI labs, Mistral. Vertical AI and media, Synthesia and Getty. Hardware and enterprise, Lenovo and IBM. Travel and consumer, Lufthansa and Adobe. The code is voluntary, but the EU AI Act, story 1 of this episode, gives it teeth. What transparency of AI-generated content means in practice: watermarks, metadata, and disclosure labels embedded in the content itself. This is the practical compliance layer. Companies sign the code to show good faith effort, which can reduce penalties under the Act. The full list of more than 180 organizations is published on the European Commission's website. The world's biggest AI companies have just agreed to a baseline of transparency. If you have made it this far, you are one of the few. Subscribe for the next one. 3 threads ran through this episode: a Euro regulation going live, capital flooding into AI applications, and the people behind the models starting to leave. The frontier moved, and we will see you next week. The AI Horizon, your weekly AI news recap. See you next week.